The first instinct that awakens within you is the urgent desire to attract his attention again. You feel the panic rising, a growing tension that pushes you to do something, anything, just to be seen, heard, recognized. It's an urgent need for a response, for confirmation of your existence. You feel as if your identity depends on that gesture, that word, that signal. Every second of silence feels like an internal scream. If you've ever felt that emptiness inside you when someone ignores you, like this right now, that way I'll know you're not just a spectator, but that you're resonating with what you're about to hear. That way I'll know you're also searching for something true, something profound. A like is your first act of awareness, and I'll see it. You begin to rethink every moment you spent together, searching through your memories for the exact moment when everything changed. You wonder if you said something wrong, if you did too much or too little. The need for answers turns into obsession, and your mind constructs scenarios, hypotheses, conversations that never happened. But it's precisely at that moment that you risk losing touch with yourself, surrendering your emotional power to the other. And that's where the real conflict begins. Not between you and the other person, but within yourself, between the need to be chosen and the fear of not being enough. It's an ancient conflict, speaking of wounds that have never healed, of parts of you that still seek love in the wrong places. But it's precisely in that moment, when you act out of desperation, that you make the biggest mistake. You lose control of yourself and hand over your emotional power to the other. It's as if, in an attempt to preserve the connection, you unconsciously sacrifice your inner dignity. Every action taken from a state of need becomes a declaration of weakness, and the other person perceives it, even if they're unaware of it. This seemingly harmless or even loving gesture conveys a subtle yet powerful message. You have power over me, because I can't feel good without your attention. And the other person, instead of coming closer, moves even further away, precisely because they sense an energy that weighs them down, that demands. This isn't just a symptom of an unresolved internal wound, but also an ancient call to a part of you that longs to be seen, accepted, saved. It's the echo of unresolved childhood dynamics, which today resurface in a new form, but with the same emotional pattern. And that's where the possibility of healing arises, not in chasing, but in recognizing the true message behind the impulse. Carl Jung taught us that the psyche is dominated by unconscious forces. We react to external stimuli with automatic patterns that repeat themselves until we become aware of them. If the indifference of others triggers anxiety, it means you have an unexamined fear of abandonment. And as long as that fear guides your behavior, you will tend to thrive from a state of emptiness, neediness, and dependence. In this emotional state, every gesture you make to bring the other person closer is perceived as a lack, a desperate plea. Even if you don't say it, your energy communicates, "I'm not enough without your validation." The other person's unconscious senses this subtle vibration and, instead of approaching, instinctively withdraws. This happens because humans intuitively sense the pressure behind a gesture that appears kind but is actually charged with need. It's as if every effort you make, every message, every expectant glance becomes an emotional burden the other person doesn't know how to handle. And the more you try to reassure them, the more they sense a void beneath, crying out to be filled. This sensation creates distance, not connection. The energy that comes from fear and a sense of lack creates oppression, not attraction. No matter how hard you try to convince them otherwise with reassuring words or thoughtful gestures, if your inner energy comes from a sense of emptiness, from a still open wound, the effect will inevitably be the opposite of what you desire. True change only occurs when your presence stops demanding and begins to simply be full, whole, stable in itself. We often live under the illusion that love and attention define our worth. We're raised with the idea that to be worthy of love, we must be seen, chosen, and approved. This belief is so deeply rooted in our psyche that it conditions every relationship, leading us to seek outside ourselves what should really be born within. The mistake is to think that our worth depends on how others treat us, when in fact the opposite is true. It's others who respond to the image we project of ourselves. But the truth is different. What truly defines us is our relationship with ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves in difficult times, the quality of our presence when we're alone, our ability to embrace wounds without judging them. It's in this inner space that authenticity is built, the kind that doesn't need applause to shine. Jung called this process individuation, the path to becoming complete, autonomous human beings, capable of supporting ourselves emotionally and spiritually without depending on external validation to feel whole. It's a slow but profoundly liberating process, which restores us the freedom to be who we are, beyond the gaze of others. And this is where the paradox occurs. When you stop chasing the attention of those who ignore you, when you no longer act out of fear but out of awareness of your own value, the energy shifts. You're not manipulating. You're not playing games. You're healing. And this transformation is also reflected externally. The other begins to perceive your absence because you've stopped projecting neediness. But this change only works if it's authentic. If you do it with the hope that the other person will return, you're still trapped in the cycle. Only by truly letting go of the need to be seen can you find yourself again. The pain you feel when you're ignored isn't just caused by the other person's absence, but by the deep personal meaning you attach to that absence. It's as if every silence is transformed by your mind into a sentence. I'm not good enough. I did something wrong. I don't deserve love or attention. Thoughts that sneak in, amplify the wound and make it even more painful. But these thoughts don't represent the truth. They're merely projections of your shadow, that hidden part of your psyche that encompasses everything you've repressed or refused to see within yourself. Jung reminds us that the shadow comes into play precisely when we find ourselves in fragile situations. It takes control of our interpretations, distorts our perception, and makes us react not to reality, but to our unresolved issues. This is why the same absence can be experienced in completely different ways. For some, it's an opportunity for reflection. For others, a profound trauma. The difference lies in the internal work we've done with ourselves, the degree to which we've integrated our shadow, and the awareness we possess of our personal value. Jung described the shadow as the part of ourselves we repress because it conflicts with the ideal image we want to project. When you're ignored, the shadow awakens. It forces you to confront your deepest insecurities, the fear of being invisible, rejected, unlovable. And if you haven't integrated this part of yourself, you'll react from the wound. You'll feel trapped, the victim of an impulse that dominates you. You'll obsessively check your last login, anxiously searching for a blue tick, a sign, a clue that will bring you relief. You'll send impulsive messages, filled with pent-up emotion, hoping for a response that will free you from the torment. Every gesture will be driven by the desperate desire to know that something still matters. But this isn't authentic connection. It's not love. It's fear disguised as affection, anxiety disguised as attention. It's the unconscious attempt to quell an internal void by projecting one's own urgency. And as long as this dynamic remains unchanged, the pain will continue to repeat itself in a spiral that slowly erodes your emotional integrity. What really works is the opposite. Don't chase, don't explain, don't justify yourself. Stay centered, even when everything inside you screams for action. It's in those moments that true inner strength is built, in the ability to stay, to breathe, to observe without reacting impulsively. Learn to tolerate silence without compulsively filling it. Not every absence is a rejection, and not every distance is a condemnation. Sometimes it's an invitation to pause, to listen, to find yourself. Enter a state of detachment, not as punishment, but for protection. Healthy detachment isn't closure, it's clarity. It's the space you give yourself to heal, to avoid falling into the traps of neediness. It's the moment you begin to feel that your presence has value, even if it's not recognized by the other. The other person's mind perceives this change. When you're no longer available as you once were, Your absence becomes a question, a void that didn't exist before and now leaves a trace. The other person begins to wonder where you've gone, why you no longer seek, why you no longer insist. But what they perceive isn't just a lack of gestures. It's an energetic absence, a profound shift in your vibration. It's as if your silence has acquired a new meaning, charged with inner presence. But if you've truly done your inner work, when that person returns, they won't find the same version of you. They'll find someone who's no longer willing to sacrifice their peace to chase an illusion. You'll never be the same, because you'll have rebuilt your center on solid foundations. You'll no longer be moved by need, but by freedom. By the knowledge that you can choose, and no longer beg. By the dignity of someone who has learned to be self-sufficient, and for this very reason is ready to welcome, but never to chase. And if you welcome that person back, it will be from a position of strength. Not because you missed them, but because you've become capable of making conscious choices. Otherwise, you risk only falling back into the same patterns. True power lies in remaining calm within even when everything outside seems to be crumbling. It's the ability to maintain your center, even in the midst of an emotional storm. It's the conscious choice not to give in to reactivity, but to breathe, to observe, to remain rooted in your essence. It's an act of inner presence that doesn't depend on what happens around you. In knowing how to say, I am worth it, even if you don't see me. It's a silent yet powerful statement, born from a deep understanding of who you are. You don't need recognition to exist. Your value isn't a reflection of other people's opinions, but a beacon that shines from within. It's your inner voice reminding you that you are enough, even when the world seems to tell you otherwise. Whenever you feel the need to seek, ask yourself, am I acting out of love or fear? It's a simple but transformative question, because authentic love doesn't beg, cling, or force. True love is quiet, firm, and secure. Fear, on the other hand, pushes, screams, and chases. Learning to recognize the difference is the first step to breaking out of the prison of approval and beginning to live with emotional freedom. Transforming this dynamic is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, but every step you take toward your emotional autonomy is an act of healing. Every time you choose not to react impulsively, you are integrating a part of your shadow. The truth is, you can't control what someone else feels, but you can choose how to respond. And every time you choose yourself, every time you cultivate your value, every time you recognize yourself even in silence, you're saying to the world and to your unconscious, I am enough. This is true transformation. Not running away from pain, but moving through it to be reborn. Becoming magnetic, not because you scream to be seen, but because you radiate strength and authenticity. This is the power that cannot be ignored. If something in this video touched a part of you, leave a like. Write in the comments what you recognized about yourself in these words, and subscribe to the Filosofia Invisibile channel. Every week, a new voice for your awareness. May you always remain true to who you are. A hug from Invisible Philosophy.